Ja, det är det.
Hello, everyone here in the room and everyone joining digitally. And welcome to this lunch session during Gbg Tech Week. I won't be here up on stage because we have an amazing guest speaker, Mikael Vigerud. Please warm him up with some applause.
Wow, thank you so much, Gothenburg Tech Week, and this amazing room. That sound of hands clapping is almost forgot how it sounded and how it felt. So hope that you guys online could feel the room here also and the energy. It's nice to clap the hands, isn't it? It's like create some energy in the body. So very exciting to be here, and let's see if we can get something out of the screen sharing also. Today we have a very exciting topic on inner efficiency and social sustainability. And what does that really mean? That's a very good question. But we approach it from unlocking the productivity and creativity through inner efficiency. And many of us might step into this as these two are opposites. Like we might be conditioned or learn that to create magic stuff, do good companies, or develop the next tech companies, or solve problems, or just having a great career is opposite to having a great life. Can you agree on that? It's like, do we have to choose between these two? So this is really what we will ask ourselves that question today, because some things are meant to be left in the past when we talk about disruptive things. So we're going to look at some inspirational places, some inspirational states of being that we can learn more about this. So as I know, many of you are entrepreneurs, tech people, and great developers. So what is better than flying to Silicon Valley and see what they are doing over there? So we can see in Silicon Valley that, is it working now? Okay, so back to Silicon Valley and what is happening there. Why do we see that companies like Google, they have big mindfulness programs? One of the most popular programs and courses within Google is called Search Inside Yourself. It's not just a genius name if you're actually a search engine, but it also points towards ourselves. And this is where we're going to start this, because throughout this session today, we're going to come back to the process that is focusing on three parts, where the first is our own state, our state of being, which we are most interested in all the time. So let's do just a little check-in, because I know many of you are busy and might come from jobs and a lot of things in the morning. So if it's okay with you, I guide a short check-in. So just you guys who attended the Monday session, you will recognize a little bit, because first we just align the posture. So if you're sitting, we just come a little bit forward. So we're sitting, holding ourselves up. And if you're online at home, you can do the same. You just come up, lengthening your spine. And we can just allow the shoulder to relax. Hands can be resting in any natural position. So from here, we just connect with the breath. We can feel how it's flowing naturally and allow this present moment to take a bigger space within our consciousness. And from here, we take a deep breath in, and we hold the breath on the top, and we exhale. We inhale again. We hold the breath in, can focus between the eyebrows, on the forehead, and we exhale. We inhale again, hold the breath in, and we exhale and come back into the space. Welcome. So we might feel a little shift in our state just by doing this 20 seconds of exercise. And still many people think that talking on the state or talking about mindfulness, meditation, or any contemplative practice is opposite of doing things, developing companies, or writing great code, or whatever it might be. But when we talk about it, we're doing it to do even more, to do better things for the future, to be sustainable within ourselves, but also to be sustainable in the greater picture. Anyone who is a software developer, writing code. If we're doing that, we're very interested. We know that the code that we are writing internally has an effect of the program. We know that a clean code is an efficient code. And we don't want to waste energy to unnecessary things. We don't want to use the electricity and the processor power to do something that is not meant for the output. But what if we apply that to our own life? The code that is running within me, is it helpful for me? Or is it using a lot of unnecessary energy to unnecessary things? And maybe it goes between these two. Anyone who has experienced stress? Anyone who experienced the opposite, like effortless ease, or so it's pretty cool. Most of us here has experience of both of these states. So what if we can learn from that? And to change our own code. Because if we look at our nervous system, it happens a lot of things. Now we talk about autonomous trucks, and we had Ian right here this morning talking about self-driving trucks. But when we talk about ourselves, we're not so interested in being self-driving. We want to be in the cockpit. We want to be the one who is driving. We want to take conscious actions and know what's happening. But still, there's a lot of things that we're not really controlling. So when we look into our nervous system, we see that, well, just by we sitting here, the heart is beating, the organs is working. So much is happening. So this nervous system has two parts, as I think most of you have heard about. We many times hear about this, the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for the fight and flight and rest and digest. The classical example of the fight and flight is the tiger. like it's coming a threat. We are in the forest and the tiger comes. What does the nervous system help us with in that moment? Is it like, oh, it's time to rest and chill and just scroll on Facebook? No. It's time to get to action. It's time to run. The system is pumping blood. It's taking all unnecessary activities within ourselves and moving into action. Either fight or flight. In this case, I most probably would choose to run from the tiger. But maybe some of you would go for the fight. I don't know. But it's the same mechanism. But what do we see today? Do we really have a tiger? Is it a threat for us? No. For most of the people in the world, it's not. But it might be something else. It might be our boss. It might be our inbox. It's like waking up in the morning, opening your mail, and knowing that you are behind schedule. You feel it's almost the same things that are happening within the body. But the thing with the tiger, that threat was not so long lasting. We ran away, we escaped. But today's threat we seems to carry for long periods of time and not really have any tools or techniques to work on. And we know what's happening with our system. It takes away functions that we are very much interested in because we're just going to run. That's the main purpose in that moment. And then maybe instead we want to be creative. We want to solve the most complex problems available. We want to access our genius brain. But our system, pumping blood for running. Does it make sense? It doesn't really. So how can we approach this and how can we find new ways to see that within ourselves and learn to see the state, to verify what is a necessary practice in the moment and what is my experience. So this is the loop that we are always coming back to, the state, the practice, and the experience, how these are connected. Like we did just now, 3 breaths when we started, we checked in. We did practice more presence, and we can verify it with our own experience. It might have made a difference or didn't. It doesn't really matter. We can do it again. So we see that the published research on mindfulness has had an exponential curve. And I think this is very much related to what we talk about, that it becomes more and more relevant for us as modern people to find ways to not run from the tiger. It's not so fun over time because we know what's happening. Well, the things that shut down, like the stomach shutdowns, digestive system shuts down, the good brain is down, sleep is not really prioritized when we're going to run from the tiger, so the sleep might be affected. We might know some of these by our own experience. And probably we see just the beginning of this, how this is coming. And it's really interesting to see how the tech stage is very much pushing. I have to say that the tech stage and the tech companies are very mature in this and maybe a bit open to alternative techniques and tools that can support your company. Because of course, when I took the example of Google and their very popular course, Search Inside Yourself, are they doing that just to be nice? Like we maybe saw in traditional companies that, well, here are some, health things, but let's now do the real thing. They are opposites. Or are they doing that to become a better company? To develop a greater solution for their customers and accessing the genius from their employees? I think that is a fundamental shift. that we have to ask ourselves, also when we do this for ourselves. Is this waste of time? Or is it an enabler for everything else that I want to bring in to my job and to my life? What would you say? Is it waste, or can it have an effect on more parameters than the first obvious ones? Waste, it might have big effect. Cool. So the research from the room shows that it might have a good effect. Let's now see if we can look at some interesting cases. Because it's always interesting when you want to do something, where can I get inspired? Where are people who seems to know something of this? If we want to see the genius brain or solve complex problems or understand how could Steve Jobs be so creative? So then we have a concept called flow. I think most of you might have heard about it. Flow state. And I mean, it's been around for many thousands of years, but the word is really coming from the researcher Mihailo Csikszentmihalyi, who in the 70s and 80s did a massive research on what people who were performing at their best, if he could find any synergies or findings of these people. And let's see how he defines flow. So he says it is an optimal state of consciousness, a peak state where we both feel and perform our best. We become so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The ego falls away, time flies, every action, movement, and thought follows inevitably from previous one, like playing jazz. Your whole being is involved, and you're using your skills to the utmost. It feels pretty good just to read it. And what I know is cool is that I know that, especially in the tech world, but also within a lot of other fields, many of you have experience from this. Usually when I speak to developers or coders, they really know how it is to just drop in. It might not happen so often, but when it happens, it just... Anyone who has experienced something similar to this in your life, where you just feel that things are aligning, flow is happening. It's pretty cool, isn't it? That we can have an experience from this just by checking in with ourselves. And you see here when we talked in the beginning about the opposites, like doing good stuff and being good. If you look at the beginning here, he found out that people were both feeling and performing at their best. So the happiest people that he could find in this was the one who was also doing extraordinary things. Normally when we look into flow states, it's many times sports, extreme sporters who might have a lot of contact with this. Especially people who is doing something where they have to be so in the present moment, otherwise they die. Base jumpers and climbers and stuff like that. But also in other sports. But we can also see in our own life, we can see this surfer. We say that he is in a flow state at that moment. If he's not putting his 100% attention on what he is doing in that moment, it will not look like that. But what can we learn from this guy? Because we don't know, but let's pretend he's pretty happy in this moment. And we can see from this picture that he's doing pretty extraordinary stuff. That wave is maybe like my house that I'm living in, and the forces that will catch him if he's going down. At least for me, it's going to be like my life is over. So let's see, what can we learn from flow state that we can implement in our daily lives? Then we have to understand it a little bit more. So this is the 4 aspects of flow. We have the challenge, which we cannot miss. We cannot, according to Mihaly, the researcher, come into flow state without a challenge. I cannot just do things that is so easy. Take on my socks. Not so much will happen. But if I challenge myself, things can start to happen. But should it be a challenge all the time? Should I run from the tiger the rest of my life? Not if I want to tap into flow. Then I should move into a phase of a release where I might still see that there is tension within me. There might be stress hormones working, like cortisol is pumping. There might happen things, but I'm not so much involved into it. I have a little bit of distance, and a release starts to come. We're still doing things. We're solving problems, or we're surfing that wave, or we're answering emails, whatever it might be now. Very individual. And then from the release, we drop in. Like when you raised your hand, I could see in your eyes, you remember some time when you were approaching the zone. And you see, usually after sports, you interview somebody, and how was it? I don't even know, I was in the zone. It's like, yeah, were you thinking about, all your emails and your problems? I didn't think about anything. It was just scoring. And then, of course, we have an integration phase when we come out from this. We cannot be there all the time, it's not relevant. And in the integration phase, we have a lot of new information, a lot of energy has been flowing, and energy and information, they always go hand in hand. So what learnings did we have from here, and how can we implement that further? So this is how we show the challenge, because I think that is so interesting and a little bit complex, how much can I challenge myself and how to challenge. And then we see here on this diagram that we have a tunnel of flow, and it seems to be related to the challenge and to my skills. And many of you are engineers or coming from that, and you see that, okay, we cannot challenge immediately so much, because what's happened? Well, we're going to create anxiety. But we cannot be very low on that either, because I took the example, I'm putting on my socks. It's not happening so much. And then over time, this is how we create genius, how we develop ourselves. If we continue to move in this tunnel, it's an experiment. We find something we like, and we challenge ourselves, we step out of our comfort zone. We know that we have to take care of our state. We cannot just be running in normal activities and doing more and more and more. But we start to iterate here in the channel. When you raised your hand and said, took me to your experience of flow, can you remember, was it only easy, or was it also a little bit of friction there? Did you need to push some boundaries within yourself? Because many times we have this picture that just lying on the beach and sipping a pina colada or whatever you drink is the picture of the best life. But here, we say that the happiest people and the one doing the greatest stuff, they are the same. So it takes away a little bit of this fear that these two has to be opposites when we talk about inner efficiency. I think this is such an interesting and beautiful merge of these two worlds that at least I had been carrying for a long time in my life. They were standing on one side, the right and the left. if we look a little bit more into the flow state, what can we learn from it? We see that it requires a complete concentration on the task. It requires focus. Is multitasking a good thing for getting in the zone? Do we see Zlatan Ibrahimovic? He's like passing 3 guys and he scores the best goal we ever seen. Did we see him answering emails at the same time and making coffee and scrolling Facebook? You guys are laughing, but we don't. I mean, why he's not doing that at the same time? I mean, he can have a phone. I mean, Adidas can make shorts with a phone pocket. It's not so complicated, is it? But when we look at the sports, it's so obvious that they're using single-pointed focus. Okay, but then I look at myself in an ordinary job day, and I'm like complaining I don't access flow today. I'm a bit disappointed. And if you just like take me, spot me without telling me, you might see me there doing 10,000 things at the same time. The opposite of really giving that precious moment my fullest attention to what I'm doing. It's such an extremely effective thing to carry. And it doesn't really matter if like I don't have to change the world all the time. I can just do what I do. Like now I'm speaking with you. Or I'm listening, or I'm the father, or I'm the son, or I'm the employee, or I'm just answering these emails. Whatever we do, we can give our fullest attention. And you remember the state, the practice, and the experience. So it can be just a practice, like now I'm only going to answering this email. Am I here and now? Am I doing that? How's my experience? When we come into the flow state, there's a direct feedback. It's like things just starts to happen. You go a little bit right, you get feedback immediately, you just go left. If it's meant you're going left, you're going left. Anybody who's been in flow knows that time is working a bit differently there. So you might come back, and it's like, oh my God, shit, was I gone for 10 minutes? Oh shit, 5 hours. And it's so much about training focus in this precious moment. And we can see here what's happened in this stage, that we have a transformation from effort to effortlessness. So we know there's a friction, but we also know there's an effortlessness around the corner. And we can see, as we talked about, there is a balance between challenge and skills, as we saw in the diagram. And this we can only know for ourselves, and it could be different for different things. But we know that when we come there, there's a supreme creativity and problem solving available for all of us. Because we're stepping out a little bit about ourselves. It's not about me and my problems and what I've learned before. No, when we are geniuses, we tap into something bigger. Then all problems have easier solutions. Because in the end, all problems, they exist within us. And naturally comes a feeling of meaning and purpose. And that feeling is, well, at least for me, nice feeling to feel. There's like a unity within yourself. Like what I'm doing, feeling purposeful. So can we learn something from this higher state of consciousness and from the research of the most happy and the successful people that I can implement now? I think the question is more interesting than the answer. Because in the question, it lies so much that's happening within ourselves, in our internal code, and affecting our internal efficiency. Because you know this. Are they really opposites? Or is that a picture that belongs to the past? Because as you guys that are on the Tech Week, I know you are disruptive by nature. And some things we don't even need to bring with us from this session today. Because when new technology comes, the old is just not relevant anymore. So see if you can make your own translation of that now. That can these two play together more and more in my life? And can I find that by finding my own state in the present moment, by being open to practice now, and also being open to verify my own experience? Because as we write programs, they write with clean code. We want our internal system to run without waste of energy. And we want to be conscious. We want self-driving cars, but we want to be the master of our own lives. And that's pretty cool when you start that process. And you do it without any pressure on yourself. You don't want another thing on your action list, do you? There might be too many things there already. But we don't want to put all the focus outward. We want to go inside and out. That's a major shift, and that's why I'm saying the state of where I'm being at now. This is really the key to the genius mind, to the supreme problem solving, and to great creativity. And that's the opposite of just doing more and looking outside. Because then I have to check with myself first. And then any practice is great. Like simple mindfulness that we did when we check in with the breath, just checking in with oneself. And if I do something more, I do breathing techniques, or I do yoga or meditation or anything, it's great. But anything that you do, walking in nature, saying no, taking time off, having a coffee with yourself, it's like tons of things that we can do. But do I prioritize them? And do I see that they are important for me in my job, in my different roles, and in my life? It's cool to merge these two worlds and start to mapping this. And just as we started, knowing that all of you know the different states already, so we don't have to believe in anything. We can verify it from our own experience. And if we are just open to practice in the moment, here and now, magic will start to happen. So just turn your direct attention back to your own breath. Just check in with your breath. See if there is anything that you can call a practice in this moment now. And just check your experience. And just anchor a little bit there that there's something of this that I can bring into my life to merge this two so we can be disruptive and develop a great, sustainable future from the inside out. So, thank you so much for listening and for contributing to this session. Thank you so much. And I know there might be some questions hanging from online or from here, so
So one of the tips you had was to connect your breath. Do you have other tools or routines or activities that you can do, or an action plan to become more mindful? Or?
Super good questions. We did on the Monday session, we did a couple of different breathing techniques. It's related to what you said, but I definitely always recommend everybody to do something with your breath. If you can do it on a daily basis, it's super, but anytime you do it is good. But also could be simple things. Like normally there's something you know when you check in with yourself that would be good for you to do. So I recommend to start with that. Do you have something?
Yeah. Oops.
What could that be for you?
To check in. Oh, to check in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I usually do breathing exercises,
Yeah.
or do like 10 minutes meditation session or something like that. That's pretty good. Or go for a run.
Yeah.
Could also be another thing.
Being in nature is amazing. Walking, also running, but also sometimes slowing down. Because many of the people who run, they also need to go slow. I mean, I love running, but it's better for me walking slow sometimes. So that's a practice for me. Running is not a practice. I can run a marathon, it's not so big problem. But walking slow for 5 minutes is more challenging. So that's why, okay, what's good for you might not be good for you. So we see, okay, for me it's more challenging walking 5 minutes in the forest. And maybe do conscious breathing at the same time. Then it's become a super interesting exercise. Saying no, if I add one more, is great. Give yourself a little space. If you're just doing things 24/7, you will not access flow, I promise.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for a super interesting and also very relaxing time to listen to you. Last time I heard somebody talk about flow. I hadn't had the experience to be in flow yet, I think. So I was like, okay, maybe because it was also the example of like software developers, they get into flow. But now I actually have experienced it, I think. And I could really relate to what you were saying, and I was thinking, like, how can I like plan to get into flow again? And would you say that it is something that you can actually plan? That you, I don't know. I know that I have to achieve this goal, and can I kind of like plan a flow session for myself? Like, I don't know, Thursday afternoon. I have to do these things before so that I can actually have this time where I can get into flow. Do you think I can plan this, or is it something that just comes whenever it comes?
It's both.
Okay.
Yeah, it's both. But it's yes to both of them. I mean, it wouldn't been very much interesting to talk about it here if we could not be able to be creators in it. If it just happened randomly, we could have talked about something else. So we talk about it here because we want to create more and more of that in our lives. So how can I plan for it? Well, okay, you can't plan for it, but you can, clean the room. Check your internal code and set the best circumstances for flow to happen. But you have also to let go of your control. Because your perfectionist or your controller will not experience flow. So that's why I say it's both. You have to balance these two. Clean the room, If you're going to dance, you have a dance party, and you have a lot of furniture on the dance floor, it's not a dance floor. So you have to move them away to be able to dance. So that we have to do. And that you do the more regular you can do it, and that's why we're focusing on the state. Where am I now in this moment? Can I practice anything to be more present? Presence is a key to access flow. And can I verify that what's happening with myself? Then we're starting to working on the flow state technology. And then depending on where you are, you add more and more advanced technologies because, you know, I cannot maintain the same state all the time because then it becomes boredom, not flow.
Thank you.
But exciting to hear your experience from flow. It's lovely. Thank you for sharing.
I think that you have to kind of experiment and try to find flow, and when you find it, try to learn from it. And what did I do to get into flow that time? Try again, pick one at a time, and try. I find that before I came into flow when I had way too much to do. The stress, yeah, fight or flight. I went for a fight and I tackled the problem. But now I found ways to get into flow even though I'm not overstressed. It's a very nice thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super nice.
Yeah. But it's through experimentation.
Yeah.
What did I do to get into that state?
Where do you find it? Does it happen when you work or?
Yeah, when I work, when I kind of use carrots. Yeah, if I finish all these things today, I'm gonna go do that. And I use the satisfaction and the meaningfulness as a carrot as well to push myself into that state.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, all the super pleasure hormones are released. So I feel a little bit just by talking about it, I got a good dose of andamide and oxytocin and everything that's happened. It's why we want to be there as much as possible. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a little bit addictive, but it's not addictive compared to taking it externally. It's a good addiction to have. Cool. If any other questions later on or from online, you can email me or contact me on any social media. So thank you so much.